Um, and we just looked at each other and said, if we don't do something about photography for this event, uh, there's never going to be a record of it. And so we volunteered to shoot all the events around this Riverside Centennial, and so that was how I made connections to people in society and in the city, who later, many of whom became my clients. And along the way, I got known more or less as a person who paid a lot of attention to reconstruction projects. So I've been involved with the Centennial, which was my first, but also with the building and dedication of the China Pavilion downtown, the restoration of the Fox, obviously, because I did a book about it, the courthouse, and the restoration, the renewal of the Muni Auditorium downtown. And recently, I have embarked on a couple of projects, some of which you will see here today. One of them is a documentation of murals in Riverside, and I think I've already photographed almost a couple of hundred of them. And also, once COVID began, I started photographing. I did what every other photographer probably in the country or the world did, which was to go out and try to be creative. There was one photographer back east who did something called portraits. Uh, he let people sit on their porch and he posed them from a distance and did family pictures of them. So anyway, I went out and started doing portraits, and then I started photographing empty streets. And then when graduation time came along, I did that. And anyway, I've got a year's worth of work, and I'm in the process now of trying to figure out how I can display it somewhere out in public. And so I'll have more news about that uh, down the road a little bit. Uh, I'm really interested. I remember at the China Pavilion when they had the dedication, I had a little display of some of the pictures that I had done. And my statement said, when I grew up in Atlantic City, they didn't care much about preserving anything. Uh, so, and this was a time when Atlantic City was in the throes of the early years of gambling. So I really enjoyed the fact that Riverside was interested in historical preservation. Some people would disagree with me and say that there should have been more, but there is a lot. And the Mission Inn was probably the biggest project, and I probably will do a book about that at some point if I have time, if I don't kick over. So um, anyway, the first picture here is, and some of you probably know Judge Vic Maselli. He was a judge for a long time, and he was the presiding judge of the Superior Court. When I donated some photography time to the restoration of Evergreen Cemetery, uh, Vic, at the end of one of the events, thanked me, and in the thank you he said, "I want to thank Michael Elderman, the Eyes of Riverside." And it was sort of like a light bulb went off in my head. It was and I went up to him after the gratitude he expressed, and I said, I'm stealing that immediately. And so I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago uh, that I took the title "The Eyes of Riverside" to Facebook, and I've got two pages on Facebook. One is just Michael J. Elderman. The other is Michael J. Elderman, The Eyes of Riverside. Now I find myself not using the Eyes of Riverside page so much, so I think I might let it go. But the title will my nickname will always be a part of what I do here, because most of the photography that I do, most of the things that I sell uh, and display are from Riverside. There have been other things, including work that I did of portraits of artists, and I did a big show about Atlantic City, where I grew up. That was a kind of a dark, sarcastic, and ironic show about uh, Atlantic City not preserving anything and going the way of neon and plastic. So anyway, I'm happy to do this, and during COVID, I've gone out almost every day of the entire year and done some pictures somewhere. Uh, Now that I'm trying to start walking again, I walk around. I live downtown, so I walk down to the mall and around to the Museum of Photography and the arts area, and then back past Tio's Tacos and all that, and then come back home. And by the time I get there, I've probably taken 30 or 40 or more pictures, depending on what's going on downtown. First thing I'm going to talk about is the Fox Theater project. And Dan, you can go to the first slide of that.
Let's see if I can do that.
I hope you can. There we go. The city invited me to photograph the Fox after they purchased it in 2005. And it's actually amazing to me that I've been with the theater, still photographing there 16 years later. So I was there very early. When I went the first time with one of the project managers from the city, we had to roust out some homeless people who were living there and do the pictures that we could do. And I got started with that. We went back 2 or 3 more times, and then I said to the city, I had this buzz in the back of my head that said, "There's a big project here." And so I said, well, "Why don't you just let me have access to the theater and save your money?" And so I volunteered basically to shoot the pictures, and it evolved over the 5-year period between when I started and the theater opened into the book that Dan mentioned earlier. This is a photograph. If you know the interior of the Fox, if you walk down the left aisle to the front of the theater, there's an arched opening, and now in there is a handicapped elevator that can get people up to the stage and into the backstage area. But this was actually looking towards where the stores were that faced Mission Inn Avenue, and it's a picture that I entered into the National Orange Show exhibit probably about six or so years ago, and it won some kind of an award there. I can't remember what it was, but it's just to me a striking representation of the deconstruction of the theater and how far they actually went, pretty much down to the dirt and to the 2x4s to start the restoration project. Okay, next slide. This is a photo looking from the front of the stage. Actually, they had done a makeshift stage of made out of wood in front of the actual stage. But by the time I got in there for actual photography that I was doing for myself, they had already cut this hole in the back of the theater. And the back part of the theater was at first the stage 1 theater, which showed foreign films and advertised that it was air cooled. And when I went in the first time and found out that it was air cooled, it was actually air cooled by a 20-inch fan, not by air conditioning. So it's kind of interesting. And that evolved into a porn theater, the Pussycat Theater, which is the reason for the magenta purple colors of the walls. I guess they thought that was appropriate at the time. But this is looking out now towards where the Civil Rights Institute is going to be building their building with the Fair Housing Institute and 72 units of low-cost housing, including housing for veterans. And I thought it was just interesting that in the middle of this deconstruction, there's almost a a beautiful postcard of downtown Riverside with the palm trees and the blue cloudy sky. Okay, next. This is the VIP room upstairs. I think it used to be a dentist's office, uh, and this is the picture that became the cover of the book. Actually, uh, it reminds a lot of people of the art museum with the arched windows and just the simple walls and the wood above. The what you see at the top of this picture is actually kind of a choir loft where they would very often have a choir or singers go up there and sing, do performances. Not during the time the Fox had reopened in 2010, but before that. Uh, and I always wanted to acquire that bench, and somehow it escaped me, and I still think about it. It would be really nice to have that right here in my dining room. Okay. This is there's two pictures I'm going to show here. This is the lobby of the theater after they had ripped out pretty much everything, all the carpeting up the stairs, all the wall coverings back on the at the top of the stairs there that you can see. Now there's a what would you call it? Not a mural, but a framed piece that lists the names of the donors to the Fox Foundation. But this is just so stark. And when you go on to the next slide, the first slide was taken in about 2006 or 7. This one was taken in August of 2009, after the renovation had been done and the lobby had been recarpeted and repainted and totally cleaned up. The photo is actually 3 photos that have been stitched together in Photoshop, so that I could show the entire lobby and the fact that basically it looks exactly like it did back in the day in 1929 when they first opened. Uh, after the theater reopened, they kept me on. The theater itself, the management kept me on. So I did photography of a lot of the musical and Broadway acts, and also they allowed me to sell some of the things that I made, like the book and T-shirts and prints in the lobby during the intermissions of the shows. So in that way, I've stayed with the theater in that capacity as well. Okay. This photo was taken in. Well, you can see the date on the marquee, October, a promo for October 1st. This was taken in October uh, of 2010 or 11. I'm not quite sure. And I was actually in the theater selling. I was there for a performance, and I was setting up my table. And at the time, I was in a studio downtown with an artist many of you may know, Cosme Cordova, who was the founder of the Arts Walk downtown. I got a call from Cosme while I was in the theater, and he said, "If you don't go outside right now, I'm going to have to come over there and drag you out," because he saw the rainbow, and he wanted to make sure that I got a good shot of it. So I ran out, and the only thing I wish I had was a video of me dodging cars, because I shot this from the middle of the street. But anyway, I did get the shot, and it became I used it with the logo that you see on the right side as a magnet and as a print and as a banner for my table in the lobby. And now I have it. I sell it as a print and as a coaster, which I'll show you a little bit later. But this was just dumb luck. I only wish that I could have changed the angle of the rainbow so that the bottom of the rainbow didn't come down into the Marriott, but came down into the tower of the Fox instead. That would have been great. Okay. And then this picture is about 3 years ago on the night of the Day of the Dead celebration that is done downtown each year by Cosme and his group. Um, I was coming down and I was actually over a block on University Avenue. Um, and I looked to the right and I saw this sky starting to take shape as the sunset. This picture has not been manipulated hardly at all. The only thing I did was I lightened up the front of the theater so it would show a little better. But the sky is exactly what that looked like. So anyway, I ran down the one block over to Mission Inn Avenue and stood right on the corner where the parking structure is, and just shot a bunch of pictures. And this is what wound up, coming from that. Also on the marquee um, is a promo for Riverside's Got Talent, which is an event I've covered since it started. It was always, I believe, at the Muni Auditorium. But anyway, the picture wound up being used by the people who run the Kiwanis Club that runs Riverside's Got Talent for promo, and I think maybe this year we'll change the what's on the marquee so that it has the correct date on it, and they can use it, in synchronicity with the event itself. Go ahead. This jumps back now to 1989. I photographed the 50th anniversary of Gone with the Wind, and the theater was really a wreck at the time. Seats were all thrashed. Even the candy counter that was still in the lobby was it just looked like a very old store that maybe you didn't trust was as clean as it ought to be. Uh, but a lot of people came in costume, and I photographed inside. And the event was actually through the entire theater. It was downstairs in the lower lobby, and then upstairs, and then in the balcony. And they showed the film that night as well. And there's another picture I actually wish I had included of a couple who won the costume contest standing in front of this marquee after the party was over. But it's just it just tells me that I've been with a lot of buildings in Riverside for a really long time, and at the time in '89, I had really only been in business for myself 4 years, but obviously that has extended by a little bit now. I've been in business actually since 1978, so coming up on 43 years as a photographer in Riverside. And I have the white hair to prove it. This is a couple of guys. Well, let me back up. When the theater wanted to reconstruct and redo all the colors of the artwork on the ceiling in the lobby and under the marquee, they brought in a color consultant from LA, I believe, and so everything in the lobby and everything on the ceiling. This is the high ceiling right above the balcony of the theater, so it's about 30 or 40 feet above the balcony, and I had to climb up there on the scaffolding to get up there. But these two guys were up there, and they were just hand painting the detail, working from sketches that were down on the table right below where their arms are. And I only had a couple of seconds to get this shot, and it never. I waited, and it never reoccurred, to get the two hands in there. But it was one of the shots. This is one of the shots that was in the show, and it really got a lot of fun and good response. Okay, we're going to move on now, and I can't remember what the next slides are, but in any case, I was involved with the Mission Inn from, well, I've always shot there. I knew people who lived there in the '70s and '80s, and I had done weddings there and that sort of thing. This photo was commissioned by an architectural magazine in Orange County, and the inn was very helpful in getting their staff to uh, open up the doors of the chapel and let me put lighting in and redirect some lighting that was in the chapel itself, so that the circular window above the entry doors would be backlit properly and would show. Uh, the original picture that I put in the inn at the time, after the magazine came out, is actually still in the marketing office of the hotel downstairs in the lower level of the rotunda, and and then I gave the hotel a bunch of slides that they could use in promotion as well. Uh, but it's sort of a classic shot, and it also appears on the Sixth Street side of the hotel on one of the photo murals that have been put up there over the years. Okay. Everybody will recognize this, the annual Festival of Lights fireworks at the end. The first year that they did, and I have photographed this, I think all but about 2 years of the 26 or so that they've done this. And the first year, the year that the inn opened, which was not, I guess the first Festival of Lights was 93. Uh, I photographed it from inside the hotel, and it wasn't as good as an experience photographically or visually. So I wish I had gone outside or photographed it from the pool downstairs, but nevertheless, spilt milk and can't go back to that. But this is a typical shot, and this is also a one that I've made into a coaster, and which some people have bought as prints for law offices and their homes and that sort of thing. Uh, so it's always really fun. And I shot this from the roof of Mario's restaurant, which is directly across the street. Um, and I've done that for about the last 6 or 7 years. It keeps me away from the crowds, which I really don't like very much. I don't like being around that many people. Okay. And our library. This is a kind of a tame version of this shot. During the time that the library has been being built, and I hope that some of you have gotten out to look at it during the last year or so, even though COVID was rearing its ugly head. Uh, the newer version of this, it's the same picture. I just made the sky a little more dramatic with a little more red added to it. Um, but between photographing the library and photographing the mural, the John Lewis mural that was up on the Civil Rights Institute site across the street, across Michigan Avenue. Uh, I was in this area a lot, so I've got a lot of pictures of the library in various stages uh, of construction, and it's just for me it's a great addition to downtown. There are more modern buildings down here, and of course it's the backside of it, which you see here, is right across from the Fox. So you've got the best of both worlds there. A lot of people have actually expressed real distaste for this building, but I think it's pretty cool. And somebody pointed out to me that if you look on the right side, uh, I guess does my arrow show when I move it, Dan? Does my cursor show when I move it?
I'm not seeing it.
Okay,
Can you see mine?
that's exactly where I want you to be.
Okay, so
That is
here.
that particular piece of the construction, someone told me, is meant to represent a page being turned in a book. And you look at it and you don't notice it, and then you look at it and that's the reason for it, and it makes perfect sense. It's just kind of a real cool thing that that I only found out within the last couple of months. And I don't even know if it's true, but it does make sense. So I'll go with that story, apocryphal or not. Okay. One of the other things I covered was the installation of the balloons, the giant balloons down at Lake Evans at Fairmount Park. This is a picture that I submitted to the art museum for their show. They had a giant show of just incredible work, paintings and sketches and prints and photographs of various aspects of this installation. And this one won a first place award of work at the show. But there was so much good work. Honestly, I feel like it was dumb luck to get the award, but it's just a striking installation. And then if you go on to the next slide, I wanted to also get a shot of it at night. But when I went down and did the photograph at night, not this one, but the initial ones, the balloons didn't really show up that well. And I tried to get the chief of police to have the helicopter fly by and shine a light down on it, and they did, but that didn't work out either. So what I did finally was I had a couple of people pull their cars up and drive up onto the sidewalk, that leads down to the water, and aim their lights at different spots of the balloons, and that's what this picture is. So and I think it's just kind of lush, and that kind of blue magenta sky in the background is something to play off of the brighter colors of the balloons themselves. And we also the same. You can leave that there. The same night that I did that shot, there were some kids who jumped into the lake and stole one of the balloons, and the police helicopter flew by again, and warned them that they better get out of there and leave it. So they did. They ran off, and they were, I think they were kids, and they were either high or stoned or something like that. I'm not sure. Uh, I don't know how familiar you are with the burros that are in Riverside. They go all the way from Pigeon Pass Road on the other side of the Box Springs Mountains, all the way down to Blaine Street, and they get into neighbors' yards, and they mow their lawns basically. Uh, and I wanted to get a picture. I've always wanted to photograph them, so I wrote to somebody on Facebook and I said, when the next time you see them up there, let me know and I'll run up. So I did, and I was actually pretty close to them when I made this photograph, and I had to dance around a little bit to make sure that guy in back was centered in between the two burros that were in front. Uh, and after that, one of them, I think the one on your right as you look at it, came up to me because he was curious what the camera was and why it was flashing and that sort of thing. So I got to pet them, which I found out I really shouldn't have done. But they're very friendly, and they're really very tame. And I think the only time you don't want to be around them is when it's mating season, which I believe is what it is now. Uh, and this picture wound up in I do a calendar every year. I call it Riverside Landmark Calendar, and this wound up in this year's version of the calendar, which was the 6th year that I've done them. Okay, this is the beginning of my COVID project, and I'm going to turn a little bit to show you something. This is the end of my COVID project. I decided I wanted to get I've never had a ponytail, and of course I don't have any hair, much of anything on top. So my wife was a little skeptical about it at first, but she's not giving me too much heat about it, and I'm going to let it go until COVID is really over, and then my last picture of whatever the COVID series is will be whatever hair is cut off on the barbershop floor. But this was this was so striking to me. I have never seen this street with no cars on it. Uh, and so I did some pictures down on the mall, and then I just drove around. I did some pictures in front of the courthouse, and then I came up 12th Street to Lime, and I saw this and I said, oh, this is it. So I left the 12th Street sign in there, and luckily got a really great sky to go with it. But it's a little scary. I went to UCR, RCC, La Sierra, and Cal Baptist to do shots also, and also to the Galleria. And it's just there, when you see that there's no parking density, it makes you realize what an impact this thing has had on us from the very beginning. Okay. One of the offshoots, uh, I don't want to say benefits, but offshoots of, excuse me, one of the offshoots uh, of COVID has been a real increase in the number of homeless people, and this shot is one of my favorites. I've done a lot of photographs of homeless guys, mostly guys, although there are some women as well, um, and uh, it just seemed to me that the bottom of the picture is so sad, and the top of the picture is meant to be so happy and joyous with the portrayal of either an orchestra or a jazz band or something like that. And here's this guy down here with his stuff all in a cart, just kind of leaning there, and he stayed there for a couple of days, and then I guess somebody from code enforcement came and told him to move on. Uh, but it's very striking to me, and I haven't talked to many of these guys, but I would like to, maybe to find out some of their stories, and continue the project in another way. Okay. Uh, One of the other things I've been doing is portraits of people. Um, this is some of you may know Anita Silvestri. She's an extraordinary painter and really a collage artist. Um, and I went to her home one day to copy some photographs for her, and I did this picture this is a phone picture, panorama, showing her studio in the back of her house. Uh, and I've done about 30 or so, maybe a little more than 30 portraits, uh, ranging from the people who own a little bar restaurant called Lobby down on the downtown mall, to Shelby Worthington, who runs Loft 84 and Worthington's Bar and Retro Taco downtown, and just a whole bunch of different people. And I'm going to continue that, and maybe that'll become a separate art idea that I can exhibit separately. But what I learned is that the people who are creative intensified their creativity during COVID. And I did my project, and I did not only the COVID project, I did the photographs of the mural and whatever else I could. And Anita has done the same thing. The two people who run the Lobby restaurant downtown, uh, they opened up on March 1st last year, and they got closed down almost immediately. Then they opened up again, and then they got closed down again, and then they opened up downtown outside when the city allowed them to do that, and they uh, stayed open, and they got a lot of their business back, but they have been through. They're two young kids, and they have worked so hard, and I look at them as real heroes, and I think that's what has come out of this is that a lot of people found ways to survive they didn't know that they could. So I just admire them. I think it's just really great. Okay. Oh, this is another one of the portraits. This is a dancer friend of mine who used to work for the Fox Foundation several years back. She agreed to do some pictures with me, and most of what we did was in front of the murals that are at the Fox Theater. There are 12, there's 13 murals, and there's one, the box office has also been decorated by Martin Sanchez from Tio's Tacos. But this is pretty much my favorite one of the ones that she and I did. Uh, and her mask just happens to match the colors of the mural itself. And the mural itself is actually hands releasing a bird in the background. And so the fact that she's flying through the picture makes that kind of sense as well. Okay. One of the other things that I covered was a lot of the rallies. I didn't stick around for the first one, which did turn violent, and where there was tear gas. I found that being as old as I am, I can't run as fast, and and I didn't have. I knew I didn't have the proper protection. I didn't have a gas mask, or I don't even think I had a scarf that I could put over my mouth. So after this rally was over, I just left at about 7 o'clock, and I think most of the bad things that happened were after that. But this was a woman who had climbed up on top of a car, uh, and to hold up her sign at this particular rally, and this was one of the Black Lives Matter rallies. I want to talk a little bit while we're on this. Uh, the murals at the Fox Theater um, were all kind of a grassroots movement done by the artists who who came down and saw all the boarded up areas of the Fox Theater and said it just makes it look so hollow, and so they talked to the city and they talked to the art museum and they volunteered and a lot of them even used their own paint to paint all of those murals down at the Fox that are all, I mean, if you haven't seen them, they're extraordinary. They're really pretty amazing. Uh, anyway, so I like several shots from this particular rally, but this one was uh, iconic for me. This is the couple that I was talking about who own the Lobby restaurant. I wanted to do a portrait of them, and I wanted it to be elegant, but I had trouble figuring out a background for them. I didn't want to do it at the restaurant. And then I don't know if you're familiar with these blue lights are they light up the underpass on Mission Avenue, uh, and they're meant to be a tribute to frontline workers. This was done pretty early in the process. And so I brought Rex and Miria, that's their names, over to this, and I had told them you can see to dress up pretty nicely, and they're both really good-looking kids, uh, so that made my life easy, and I just put them there, and I did probably 30 or 40 pictures, and this is the only one I really like. It's just shows them with the frontline symbols in the background and their own, you know, elegance in the foreground. And they even had to, they even because his immune system is somewhat more compromised, they had to live apart for the first part of COVID. So that was very sad for them and their kids. Okay. Well, there are other things that I do in addition to immersing myself in these projects. And this is a baby portrait that I did about a year and a half ago of twins uh, that were born in the summer of 19, I guess. So coming up on 2 years now. But the mother had gotten an old orange crate and stuffed some blankets into it, and then put both babies in. So this is a shot that they used for their baby announcement. And they're now it's so amazing to see these kids. They're like 18 months old and they're big. Uh, they've really eaten very well since then. Uh, so that's one of the things that I do is I mean I do baby portraits. I'll do anything that anybody wants me to photograph. Mostly I've survived doing special events and headshots and things like that. But I do weddings and portraits, and I copy artwork and pretty much whatever else there is. and I seem to be still surviving at it. So I'm very happy about that. Although now I can say that I think I've done in the last year 6 jobs as a photographer, except for the ones I do for myself. So, but we've managed to survive, and we're really grateful that we're not one of the homeless people that I photographed, or two of the homeless people. Okay. This is just the last 2 slides are basically samples of the kind of things that I've done. Pictures of downtown Riverside, and the rainbow. Of course, you saw the rotunda at the Mission Inn, a skyline view of Riverside from out near Pachapa Hill. I don't know if you can see the shot on the right. It's the road that goes under the Mission Bridge and out towards Rubidoux, with all the rain crosses lining it. And then on the top right is a twilight or an end of day sunset shot of the county building, and then a picture of the courthouse that I've used. It's actually an older picture, but it's turned out to be kind of a classic among things that I sell. And then the other one with the chair and the shadow is just something that I found on Park Street or Park Avenue. I don't know which it is, down on the east side. This is, oh, you can go back then to the last one. This is a sheet uh, that I use. This is a sheet that came back from my printer uh, with a bunch of shots that I used to make drink coasters. And so, and I'm going to show you one of these. So the coaster is on it's set on a stone base, and an actual picture is glued to it, and then I resin coat it, and on the bottom, you won't be able to see this, but on the bottom I put little rubber dots that prevent it from scratching your furniture. And so now I've probably got a couple hundred of shots that are formatted to be coasters, and I don't have them all in stock at one time, but they've turned out to be a very popular item. And now I'm thinking about making trivets for as hot plates for tabletops and that sort of thing. So if you ever want anything like this, you can contact me. I'll give you my email. It's mjelderman@gmail.com. And you can also look at my work on Facebook, which is ongoing. I post at least every other day at Michael J. Elderman on Facebook. And then on Instagram, if you're on Instagram, my name on Instagram is Eyes of Riverside. And not always, but some of the time I post the same pictures on both platforms, and sometimes I just do totally different things depending on what I have in my stock at that time. So anyway, I hope you've learned a little bit about me and enjoyed seeing the pictures. And if you have any questions, we can talk.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have your items on display at the Mission Inn Foundation store museum?
That's a long story. I think my book is still there. The Fox book is still there. But I actually haven't made any new posters in a whole year. But I did try to get them into the Mission Inn, and they said, well, we've already got enough of those, which I thought was not a good answer. But but I'm going to try again now that we're coming out of this, and I think maybe by summer and fall we will be I hope in a lot better place. I'm going to try to get them there. I have them currently at the Maid store. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have them. They always have about a dozen. and I'm 16 there. And I also have my book there, and I have a few prints there. So you can check there. I'm also going to start having coasters at Bless Ranch out in Van Buren near the cemetery, and those will be more oriented towards citrus things, the citrus park, and that kind of subject matter. And they're $10 each, and I usually sell them 4 for $35. So there you go.
So other questions?
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Margie, Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin and Margie.
I've got two questions. The first is just to tell you that for 2022, which is the 75th anniversary of Temple Bethel becoming Temple Bethel, becoming a synagogue, we're going to be coming out with a book, and there might be, I know that you have untold numbers of photographs that are related in one way or another to the local Jewish community. And there's a possibility that we may have a real use for a few of them.
Okay, well, you can talk to me when you're ready, and I can figure out. I just pardon me, I didn't hear you.
Send you an email.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, do that. And I just got a new scanner, and so I'm in a place now where I can actually get back into my negatives, because I've got negatives from 1976 or so to 2003, and then everything from 2003 has been digital. So I got a lot of territory to cover.
I wonder how many you have.
Oh God, don't even ask.
Yes,
I have no clue.
Ask. You haven't counted recently.
Tens of thousands, I'm sure.
Yes. The other question is, I don't suppose there's any chance that back in the 70s or 80s that you might have photographed any of the Chinese gravestones at Olivewood. Did you?
It doesn't ring a bell. I don't think. I think when I paid attention to gravestones, I probably was more into evergreen than I was into Olivewood, and I wish that weren't the case, but probably not. Are they still there?
But you moved here in when, 76, you say?
I was here in 66, but 66. I didn't start photographing until about the early to mid 70s.
Roughly half of the Chinese gravestones that were at Olivewood in 66 are now gone, having been broken or stolen. And the Save Our Chinatown Committee is trying to replace some, but we're inhibited by the fact that we, although we may know the English name of the person, for it to be a valid, appropriate Chinese gravestone, it has to have the name correct in Chinese characters.
Oh, right.
So we're looking for old images of them. Should you happen to run across one, well, thank you. Okay.
Well, is there anybody in town who can possibly help you with that?
I don't know. We're reviewing. Yeah, there's a
committee.
Yeah, we've got a committee working on it, but
yeah.
I know that people have gone and photographed those gravestones because I've seen a few of the photographs many decades ago.
Right.
I can't remember who had them. They're probably gone by now. I'm just hoping that somebody comes across some of those photographs. That's all.
Yeah, you might. Do you know Michael Busey?
He posts frequently on the Riverside Photograph Facebook page, right?
Yeah, he's somebody, and you might also talk to Steve Leck from the Riverside Historical Society.
Steve Leck, I have talked about. I've talked with.
Okay.
I'll try Michael Busey. Thanks for the.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we're running a little short on time, but any additional final questions, Michael? If not, I want to again extend big thanks to you, Michael, for agreeing to share some of your beautiful photos with
That
us
was fun.
today.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here. And
Thank you
with
all for
that,
coming.
I'm going to stop the recording.